So Orlando Wood is the founder and CEO of Koobrik Labs, a Beverly Hills-based, which I love, I wish I was in Beverly Hills, Beverly Hills-based company using AI to simplify and accelerate creative production. The company is part of the Warner Brothers Discovery Accelerator and the NVIDIA Inception program. Before moving into tech, Orlando built a heavyweight career in production, from Wieden and Kennedy, Amsterdam, and Fallon, London, to leading Biscuit Filmworks UK and Rogue Films, producing acclaimed campaigns for brands like Nike, Cadbury's, Heineken, and Coca-Cola. He's also a founding investor at 42 M&P, an Emmy-winning management and production company, and an angel investor in emerging ventures spanning AI, film, and finance. So thanks for coming on. And
you make it sound so good. It's
wow,
so
there
good
you are.
it's
cool. It's great stuff. That's why I was excited about this, because everyone has been talking about AI. It's just everywhere you go, it's discussion. I was just out in in Berlin for Cyclopay. Obviously, that's it's the shadow over everything at the moment, I feel. No one really understands how it's going to affect them, but everyone does know it's going to affect everything. And anyway, so let's get into it. I've got some questions. So you've gone from, was going to start from early stuff. So you've gone from producing award-winning commercials to building AI-driven creative tools. What's pushed you toward the technology?
To be honest, I didn't thrive in the pandemic. I was not one of those people that lost weight and improved themselves particularly. I mean, I did learn to code a little bit, and some pandemic, I was working on a film with Netflix, which is what brought me out to LA in the first place. And we had a start date. We were greenlit. We were out to talent with money and an air date, or money and a start date, which is what you kind of want. So you know somebody's gonna say yes. And then the pandemic shut it down, and that was fine. But, after I left Rogue, I was a little bit kind of, I started working on this film, and then suddenly I was just aimless. Like, with global production shut down, advertising obviously kept going in some way. Film production was absolutely completely closed down. So now I was just kind of, for the first time in a long time, left with nothing to do, and I did nothing, and I ate everything. And it was very nice, because I was, falling in love and stuff, but with my wife. But on the other hand, I was kind of, gaining weight, and I mean, she sort of saw me at my worst and still decided to stick around. So I guess that's good news. But yeah, and I think that, coming out of the pandemic, I was going to start an agency with an ex-creative director out here and a few other people. And then my college roommate, who was an engineer at Columbia, I was in the film program. He was in the computer engineering program. He called me up and he said, I've got early access to this thing called ChatGPT. And so back end of 2022, he said, what pain points in either advertising or entertainment do you think we could solve with this? And I said, well, coverage. When I came out of film school, I worked for production companies, one that was part of the BBC, and I would just be doing coverage every time a script would come in. And coverage is the first step a screenplay takes when it hits a creative organization. And you have to read the script, and then you write logline, synopsis, genre, breakdowns of all of the characters, then your thoughts on plot, structure, characterization, et cetera, et cetera. And back then, that was a pretty impressive thing to have done. We had to do a lot of programmatic work, because the token length, the standard token length was, I think, 2,500 or 3,000 tokens. A standard screenplay is about 70,000 tokens of context. So we had to break it down into component parts, and then recursively feed that into, using like Python and code to break it down, recursively feed that into the language model, and then get a summary and stitch that summary back together to deliver a report. And we built it as one of the first AI agents. And what was great about it is coverage is a major pain point. We made it just an email. We didn't have a website or anything. We just spoke to people at UTA and CAA and Warner Brothers and Disney. And we just said, here's an email address. You have an account with us. Email it. and it will, within 5 to 7 minutes, send you back a Word document that's a sort of, 10 to 15 page Word document with every single character broken down, summaries, breakdowns, all of the things that you need to have broken down for your organization. And that was just an email agent. Then we hooked up a chat agent to that, so you could just email with an expert on that script via ChatGPT. And it was just really exciting. And we then kept building this program that's now, being used by over 70 production companies and major studios, most of the big talent agencies. And yeah, that's kind of how we got started. And it was just very lucky that, my business partner and one of my oldest friends is a sort of AI genius, or a coding genius. And I happen to be, ambitious and pushy, and I just salesy and got ourselves into every door, because I think that the great thing was knocking on doors at UTA. Once you say we've automated coverage because we were first, those doors opened quite easily. It was quite an easy sell, and at that point, and A24 is a client, and HBO, and it just really kind of took on a life of its own, and it was just really thrilling.
That's such an interesting, I never realized it was about that. It's a really interesting pain point, as you put it, that you've solved.
Yeah.
And as ChatGPT has come out and it's obviously become universally used, is it still as relevant as ever? I mean, are people, what I'm saying is now, I mean, are people just downloading the script and then telling ChatGPT? Do you see what I mean? Do you need the Koobrik? Do you need your gateway, as it were?
Yeah, I think that two things are true. One is the entertainment industry has just been the victim of the largest copyright theft of all time at the hands of ChatGPT, OpenAI. Now, that first version, we very quickly moved our instance of ChatGPT onto Microsoft Azure. The way we see it is that, AWS is a huge investor in Anthropic. I mean, all of them are, so is Google and whatever else, but AWS is one of the huge ones. So Anthropic has a deal with AWS where AWS can host Claude on Amazon Bedrock, and Microsoft can host ChatGPT on Azure. And then Databricks sort of is a jack of all trades. You can kind of host across. But what we realized and recognized is, especially when we got our SOC 2 compliance, which is similar to ISO compliance in Europe, these are high AWS, Microsoft. These are high trust American companies, that have been handling FedRAMP high or classified data. They've been handling HIPAA data, which is medical data, secure financial data. They've been handling data of incredible sensitivity for a really long time. And so we make sure that when we hit ChatGPT, or when we use Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity or any of the number of models that we use, we hit them on very safe, SOC 2 compliant, FedRAMP high eligible, instances. And so I think that's the other thing. The entertainment industry was very slow with these models, because they were like, we've just been stolen from. Then there was the SAG-AFTRA strikes, that were all to do with AI. So there was a natural reticence, and we really positioned ourselves as a trusted partner there. And yes, you can absolutely send a script to ChatGPT. They are holding it, and whether that goes into their training data, it remains to be seen. But 3 years ago, they perpetrated a massive copyright theft. Are we ready to trust them just 3 years on? I'm not sure we are.
That's a really good answer. That's really interesting as well. It's really insightful, just your understanding of how, just for example, talking about AWS and how, it's just how these models are working, how the ecosystem exists is enormous, and it's crazy at the moment how, and I understand why they're doing it. I'm sure you and I would do the same in the same position, where you're just going to go for it and see what happens, because they can't stop, and whoever gets there first wins anyway. And so whatever the fine will be, it's completely irrelevant to the end game. So it supersedes everything. But but the day will come, theoretically, when everyone's, I mean, there's already all these court cases going on at the moment, which is fascinating. So
yeah, I mean, I think that like one of the other things is that, you know, I know it's old news, but it's still very relevant. People should be aware of is the Sony hack was just 10 or 11 years ago. And like, you know, when Sony got hacked and all of their emails were put out on the web, and I think that James Franco, Seth Rogen movie with North Korea, like, you know, and it was, you know, that was kind of one of the first canary in the coal mine events, which is people are keen to get into these entertainment companies, and their first party data is incredibly valuable, incredibly sensitive. And I think that that's the other thing is, you know, when somebody was going to send us the flagship superhero script of a new major superhero franchise, they were going to send it over. And I went, I don't know that I want it. You've spent this is a $2 million PDF just based on what you've invested into it. You're going to spend $200 million on the production, and you want it to make $1 billion at the global box office. So technically this is 120 pages worth theoretically $1 billion. I don't want it. I don't want, like, I want you know what we should do. And this is how sort of Koobrik Labs began in its infancy, was I said, why don't we set up Koobrik behind your firewalls? Why are you even sending it outside of your organization? Let's put it back where all of your firewalls exist. It's safe. We come back there. We work with your IT department. We set up Koobrik on an S3 instance that is localized to you, that you're super comfortable in, you're super safe with. And we just set up Koobrik back there. Like, why does it need to come out to us? And I know that the only reason it would need to come out to us if we were the type of SaaS company that is trying to get your scripts, you know, and we've said this to everybody, you know, obviously we, you know, A24 is a client, and, you know, they have some of the greatest scripts in the world. And, you know, our attitude is, why send them to us necessarily? Like, keep them where you are most safe, is behind your own walls.
Yeah, it's a great idea. It's very easy at the moment not to remember the downsides of what we're doing when we're using ChatGPT and all of these other AI, these other learning language models. I mean, it's really interesting, especially about the hacking aspect, because nobody understands. There's no clarity on that at all. There's no understanding at all. Okay, good. So I think we're only at the first one. I'm going to have to run through the rest. I'm a bit worried about this.
I do babble on. I'm sorry. No, don't worry.
I like it a lot, and it's exactly what I was hoping for, because it's given me insight into what's going on in a really good way.
Yeah, because I think that one of the other things that I'll say, and I don't know if you're planning to get to it, is one of the things that I'll say is that these AI companies are coming for everything. I mean, ChatGPT basically made up an app store of GPTs. They've just released a web browser. They're coming for Google. They're coming for the big things first, but they are going to try to filter down into every vertical, every company. Your first party data is the one thing that the data you collect by just being in business over the course of the last 10 years, your contacts, the way you do business, the way you write your treatments, the way you put together your budgets, all of those things. That is the value of your company, and that's your subject matter expertise. It is not worth it ever to risk that going out to the language models, because they will use it eventually, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the line, to remove you as a necessary part of your industry.